If you're looking for homeschool sanity, welcome. I'm Dr. Melanie Wilson, Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom and curriculum author. But I was once so disorganized, I thought I had to quit homeschooling and stop having kids. Now, by the grace of God, I have 6 homeschool graduates. Whether we're discussing parenting, productivity, or practical tips, I pray that this episode is just what you need for happy, healthy homeschooling. Hey homeschoolers, if you have a teen daughter, I think this episode is a must listen. I interview Shannon Popkin and Lee Nienhuis, authors of Comparison Girl for Teens, and I haven't been able to stop talking about it. There is so much wisdom here about our girls and how to help them manage comparison and friendship in a God-honoring way. Shannon Popkin invites you to drink deeply of God's story and live like it's true. Shannon's books also include Control Girl, Comparison Girl, and Shaped by God's Promises. Shannon also hosts the Live Like It's True Bible podcast and has been featured on Revive Our Hearts, Family Life Today, the Gospel Coalition, and Proverbs 31. She's happy to be sharing life with Ken, who makes her laugh every day. Together, they have the joy of watching their 3 young adult kids become the amazing people God created them to be. Lee Nienhuis is an author, speaker, and Bible teacher. She co-hosts the Martha and Mary Show and the You Can Tell the Children podcast with Bible to School. Lee's books, Brave Moms, Brave Kids, and Countercultural Parenting, are a clarion call for parents looking to raise wholehearted Christ followers. Lee and her husband Mike have 4 kids and live in West Michigan. Here's my chat with Shannon and Lee. Shannon and Lee, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. I am really excited to talk with you about comparison, in particular, how it impacts our teenage girls. But before we jump into the topic, which I know is going to be so engaging, I would love to have each of you take the time to introduce yourself and your families to my listeners.
Sure. Okay, I can go first. My name is Shannon Popkin, and my husband Ken and I have been married for 27 years. I'm married to a data scientist who's funny. So I think that's kind of a strange combination, but I love his sense of humor. And we have 3 young adult children, 25, 23, and 20. So we have officially launched them all, but we're all home last night. So that's always fun when they all are home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they all 3 live in town, and we're thankful.
Oh, I bet.
And I'm Lee Nienhuis, and I live here in West Michigan with my husband. We live at a Christian camp and conference center here, where my husband is the director of maintenance and facilities. So I actually live at summer camp. And we have 4 kids that are starting to launch. Our first got married this summer, and we're super excited to be in-laws now. And then I have 2 high school girls, a senior and a junior, and a 13-year-old boy. And I'm telling you, I'm in a season where I need Jesus like oxygen. So it's just a really, really fun season. I just love being a mom.
Oh, that's great. I really don't know if we ever get out of that season, though, I have to say.
It's very true. Where we need Jesus. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so before we get started into the nitty-gritty of the topic, I would love to know how you each got interested in this topic of comparisons that especially girls and women tend to make. And Shannon, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, comparison has always been a problem for me. So like some of my earliest memories are comparing myself. I remember, noticing at a young age how I was different from the other girls in my class or in my family or in my neighborhood. And, feeling all this angst and pressure to measure up and trying to keep up with the other girls, or noticing ways that I was falling behind. So and what I'm noticing is I'm not outgrowing the problem. Like it's just kind of trailed behind me. So as a young mom, I would compare myself to other mothers who were working, or as a mom of middle schoolers or teenagers, or now mom of young adults. And I can imagine it going into being a grandma, like I just can, it's a thing where we just tend to glance sideways and always be comparing and measuring. And I think this is what I've noticed, what I've discovered is this is an idea that our enemy has to use against us. I don't like to call comparison a game. I don't think it's a game. I think it's a strategy that our enemy uses against us, and he doesn't fight fair. I think he goes after our girls before they're even aware of who they are. They don't even have their identity secured in Christ yet, and he goes after them. And so I think, man, this book that we're going to be talking about, this is us wanting to fight back, against the darkness. So this is something I've been thinking about for a while and finding freedom from, and just wanting others to find that freedom too.
Wow. I love that kind of way of thinking about it. I think it's very empowering. It definitely motivates me. Lee, how about you? How did you come to this subject area?
Well, actually, it was Shannon calling and asking if I would be willing to endorse the book Comparison Girl when she wrote it for women. And, to be honest, Melanie, I was like, yeah, I'd do anything for Shannon. I think she's a great Bible teacher. I don't think I'm going to really resonate with this topic, but if somewhere in the pages I realize, I actually do have a comparison problem too. And, I just think it is epidemic in women, especially in this day and age. I was thinking the other day that they ask me at the end of every service call if I'm willing to take a survey about how they treated us. And so I think society is setting us up to always be ranking ourselves and ranking other people and whether we're satisfied. And I found myself in the pages just dissatisfied quite often with who God made me. And I, as I got done with the endorsement, I told Shannon, because I have 2 teen daughters and a bunch of girls that I love that I'm involved with in their lives, this has to be a study for teen girls. Like the place where this really begins for women is in this angsty teenage years where this begins to have a foothold, and we wake up and realize, we're in a world that's measuring, and it's a real blow. And so I said that to Shannon. She was like in the middle of book launch and said, no way. I think she actually said, do you want to do that? And so, over the last couple of years, we've looked at each other again and again and kind of really believed that this is what God probably had for us. But finally we put our heads together and decided to write because our girls are worth it. And we really believe that the time to stem off this problem is in those years where they wake up one day and everything's different. They see the world different.
Very good. Well, I am glad that you both decided to take that challenge or that call, whatever it is, and you ran with it. And we're going to talk about now why it is so important, because as a psychologist, I see the connection between comparison and anxiety and depression in our girls, which is at a record level. And you really don't need to watch the news or look at a research study to know that, right? I mean, we just know, we see it everywhere. And so I was hoping that you could take turns addressing how you see this related to anxiety and depression. Let's go back to you, Shannon.
Well,
Sure. Anxiety is a problem, isn't it? It's a huge problem. And we know, like, you're a psychologist, so you know that the studies are linking social media, especially, to anxiety and depression. And one of the puzzle pieces we know it's a complex thing. So it's not as though it's a simple, answer to the problem, but perfectionism seems to be part of the problem. And this always trying to measure up, always just being so aware of your flaws and other people's successes, like constantly noticing the differences. And so like we see girls with their phones pulling away and isolating, and just always striving to, like, wanting to compare, the highlight reel with their life, and just noticing, like, they don't want to go through the ups and downs of life. They just want to skip to the high point every time. And I think there's a lack of being rooted in reality of life is going to be a struggle, and we're going to have to, there's going to be a process of working to achievement. But when we're expecting ourselves day in and day out to land on top, right? And not just being able to just be kids and have fun and just relax and be ourselves. Like, of course, there's going to be anxiety that come with that. What would you add, Lee?
Well, anxiety and depression is a really complex issue. Like we said before, we live in the greatest mental health crisis the world has ever known. And we see that every single day as we walk through high schools and look girls in the eye. And they can't always put their finger on whether this is a physical problem or whether it's an emotional problem. But what we do know is that we also have the loneliest generation and the least mentally healthy generation. And so we often think that comparison sets us against the other. It makes it more difficult to relate. And Shannon and I say it like this. It's like a girl walks into a room, and studies show that when a woman walks into a room, the vast majority of women assume they are not welcome in the room that they walked into. And so I've read between 8 and 9 women, grown women, assume they're not welcome. So Shannon and I figure it's like looking at a makeup compact when you walk into any room. You are so focused on yourself, staring at this little compact of yourself, or right now it's a selfie screen, right? Like girls are looking into the images of themselves and saying, am I enough? Do I belong here? Do I fit? How good am I? Do I measure up? And they're missing the opportunity for fellowship and friendship and the depth that comes from being in relationship with others. And this is, we often say, a part of the enemy's plan for girls is to keep them self-focused, where Jesus wants us to live me-free. And that doesn't mean we're forgetting about ourselves, or we don't take care of our bodies, or that we never look around and say, who's pretty. It's that we look around and we realize that the people who are the most powerful and influential in the room are the ones who have the ability to look up from those little mirrors or the selfies and see the other people in the room and begin to engage in a way that's loving and kind. And so are anxiety and mental health issues a huge problem? Absolutely. And I think it has to do with isolation, loneliness, and what's happening when all this measuring happens.
Very, very good. And I would absolutely agree. And I really feel like you're talking about a variety of issues that we could explore in depth: loneliness, contentment, just like success. What does success look like? I mean, it's just, there are so many things, but we're gonna try to limit ourselves to comparison because that's what we're talking about. But I think there's such a depth to what you're each sharing that it makes it incredibly valuable for girls and the parents who care about these girls. Okay, so let's talk about the family. You each come from different backgrounds, and I am interested to know how you think that the messaging that a girl receives from her family and her church background affects the way that she sees herself. And I was thinking that we would start with you, Lee, this time.
Well, it's interesting. We really did grow up in totally separate environments. I did not grow up in a family that really was walking or following after Jesus. And I did not meet him until late high school and begin that relationship with him. So I did not have the foundation for godliness, which in some ways, actually, there are some things that are easier for me than they are for Shannon in this measuring game, because my parents told me I was great all the time, that I was beautiful and that I was lovely. Like, as a matter of fact, they built my pride, and very large, actually, told me I could be successful, anything I wanted to be, and it wasn't tempered with humility. And so that has set me up for interesting battles of my own. But really, in reality, I did not know who God said that I was. I was not secure in Christ. And so then it is a constant striving that happened to be the best, to be successful. And so the temptations are often different. But one of the stories that we talk about in the book especially is this time when I was in middle school and invited by a church friend to go to summer camp. And I had gone with my mom to pick out a swimming suit, and I had picked out a bikini because I looked so cute in it. My mom agreed I looked so cute in this bikini. And I got to summer camp, and you're already laughing because you know what happened. I got to church camp, and after I'd gone to change, the girls started talking about how immodest I was, and how I was trying to get boys' attention. And really, a friend told me in love that that's what they were talking about. But I was just so wounded because I didn't have a standard set for me. I didn't see the way that the church girls saw. And it really took years to overcome that hurt that happened in that moment. And so as we looked at this issue of comparison, Shannon always came from a point of view, which she'll explain in a minute, is from an incredible home. And I came from an environment that did not tell me God's truth. And so how we've fought this battle and how we've engaged it has always been completely different. Shan, how about you?
Yeah, that's true. I remember my earliest memories are being at church and reading my Bible storybook with my parents. And as a 4-year-old, I remember coming in and telling my mom I had heard the story of Nicodemus, and I wanted to have eternal life like he did. So like from my earliest memories, Jesus was part of it, and I knew that I was loved and I belonged, and I had a confidence in that. And actually a natural confidence too in my personality. And yet, the enemy crept in even there. And I think some of the ways that I have struggled with comparison have to do with comparing down, right? And seeing myself from an elevated position, and, being one of the church girls who notices the ways that others aren't measuring up. I can just so relate with the pride in that. We tell a story about this little girl that I was talking to. She had just responded to the gospel, and as an adult, I pulled her out into the hallway, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, honey, are you feeling guilty about your sin? And she says, no, I don't sin. And I took her to a verse in the Bible. I'm like, oh, like maybe one of these ways, have you sinned? No, I've never done any of those things. So then she said, can I go back to my class? And I said, sure, let's go back to your class. So her teacher, since she had raised her hand and wanted to talk, she assumed that, there was news to share. And she said, oh, do you have something to say to the other girls? And this little one was like, yes. And she took her finger and swept it across the room of girls and said, all of you have sinned. Oh, I forgot to say this. I took her to the verse that I know I mistold this story. There was another verse that I took her to saying, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. So that's the part she wanted to share. She's like, all of you have sinned. She did it twice. All of you. And I just relate with that little girl. I just want to focus on everybody else's sin. And I feel this sort of elevation in noticing the ways that other people sin. I think people in the church focus on sin more than anybody else, obviously, because nobody else is thinking about sin. So that's another way. I think there are two ways to struggle with comparison. There's the way of comparing up and feeling less than, inferior. And then there's the comparing down. And both of these I think you talked about the messaging from our families, the ways that we are raised. And I can imagine that homeschool families they're stellar families, right? But sometimes the messaging gets mixed up and like, no, we have it all right. We're doing it all right. And I think comparing down can be more of a problem for those exceptional kinds of families, right?
Yep, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to just interject a little bit that I was amazed in your book, which we will talk about as we go, but that you even talked about comparing parents. I was amazed
Mhm.
that you just kind of teased that out. I hadn't even really thought about that, but we absolutely do. You have this kind of parent, and that's better than what I have, which is this kind of parent. And I was really impressed by how you were able to kind of pull all the threads, I think, that are connected to comparisons that teen girls make. And so, we've kind of touched on so much that you share in your book about the difficulties, the challenges, whether they are mental health, spiritual well-being, that girls can struggle with as a result of comparison. But now I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk about how parents specifically can help their girls avoid the major pitfalls of comparing.
Mm.
Let's start with
Yeah,
you,
Melanie.
Lee.
It's so fun to answer this question because this has been a great challenge for the last couple of years. I've been parked in comparison and recognizing how, as a mom, how easy it is for me to speak words of comparison. And instead, so for example, we're at soccer practice and it's easy for me to say, why can't you have all of your stuff together like Janie does? Janie always comes to practice. She has her shin guards on. She's ready to go. She's dressed. Her family's getting out of the car. They're 5 minutes early. Why can't we be like Janie's family? And it is just really interesting to find those words like than, more, less, prettier, at least. And so I think it really starts as mom, just really representing this new way of thinking, which is that God made you a unique individual. And we can be certain of that as moms. We recognize the individuality in each of our kids. We celebrate it. I homeschooled for a couple of years too, which put me deeply in touch with the different strengths and weaknesses of my child. And really, it's just pointing to the God who gave them these strengths and these weaknesses for his purposes. And so, Shannon and I've spent a lot of time thinking about the deficits that are put in us and realizing that even those deficits that are found in our appearances, in our physical bodies, in our academics, those are put there for God's glory as well. And so those are the places that make us need him. And so when we as parents embrace this way of thinking that God uniquely designed each child, then we begin to help them embrace that as well. And I do think there is something to recognizing that our kids are going to have shots taken at them just for having a biblical worldview. So they're swimming in a generation that does not have a biblical worldview. I saw a Barna statistic that said 1% of teenagers right now have a biblical worldview. Well, if that's true, then we need to be speaking words of kindness, love, and affirmation over them. The world is whispering plenty that they are not enough. And so I think that's really important when they get home that we are speaking words of confidence over them, letting them know when they're doing the right thing. When they're saying the right thing, being real quick to appreciate who they are, because the world's taking so many pot shots at them right now, just really affirming them. We'll have opportunities to speak truth and humility into them. But in the meantime, I think it's important that we as parents take extra time to build them up.
That was excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I completely agree, but I want to hear what Shannon has to say now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that when we look even at our families, isn't it interesting that our kids are so unique from each other, right? It's not just by family that we're different. It's like even within the little sphere of our own families. My husband and I are just coaching our son. We've moved from like parenting to coaching now, and he's inviting this. We're trying to give input, and we're thinking very carefully about who God made him to be, and trying not to just assume that his course in life will be the same as his brother and sister, because he's unique and he has a whole completely different, unique set of gifts and abilities. And he needs, unique parenting. So we like to think of it like using a metaphor of a measuring cup. The glass kind with the lines on the side. And we say every kid, every person has a unique blend in their measuring cup of their aptitudes, their background, their family history, their beauty, whatever it is for a girl. Like, this is what makes you, you. And what we want to do with that measuring cup is take it and put it next to somebody else's, whether it's a brother or sister or someone from another family, and say, how do I measure up? How am I doing? And I think that's our enemy's design. He is behind all of this measuring and jealousy and judging, right? And our Jesus didn't live with an eye on the lines on the side of the cup. If Jesus had a measuring cup, it would be the biggest one and it would be brimming full. And what did he do with his measuring cup? He took it and he completely poured his life out. He emptied himself on the cross. And so, and when you think, if you picture that measuring cup tipped to one side, the lines are irrelevant. They don't matter anymore. And so there's just such freedom in that. I think there's freedom in noting that whatever is in your cup for you or your child, it's a unique blend. God apparently loves variety. And so your cup is going to be different than her cup. And then why did God give you what's in your cup? He didn't give it to you so that you could feel better than somebody else or so that you would feel worse about yourself than someone else. No, he gave it your life itself. He gave to you to serve other people. Mm-hmm. And so when you tip that measuring cup and focus on the spout, there is this me-free freedom that comes to you. Suddenly when you walk into the room, you're not like a here am I kind of person. You're a there you are kind of person. And how can I serve you? What's in my measuring cup that I can pour into you? And so we just see this as being a way for girls to find freedom and purpose, a unique purpose. What do I have to give that nobody else in this room has to give? And a confidence in the Lord. That's what we're hoping for.
That was wonderful. And I want to pull one of those quotes out from what you said right there, which I probably will. You can look for it on social media, but that was just wonderful. Both of you shared such great truths that I find really reassuring as a parent. I don't have a teen girl anymore, but I have a 20-year-old daughter, and she still has these comparison issues to deal with. I still have these comparison issues to deal with. We all do.
Totally.
I think especially, right? As women.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about one of those experiences or characteristics or ingredients, if you will, of the measuring cup that you were just talking about. And I see one of those as being the painful experiences that we have each had in our lives. And you each talk about these painful experiences in your book to the point that I just felt them in my gut. I was like, oh, whether I have experienced something similar or I can just relate to the emotion. It is real and it is big. And one of the things that I have struggled with personally is that these experiences can be so painful that while I might want to just like throw off any concern with comparisons or keeping up, and like making sure that, who cares if I'm wearing the jeans that are in style right now, right? But if I've had a very painful experience where my lack of keeping up, let's just go with fashion, for example, where lack of keeping up has been used to make me feel terrible about myself, has been used as part of my rejection in the past. How can I get past that? And I was hoping that you could each speak to that. How would you advise a teen girl who has had some of these really embarrassing, hurtful times in her life to get past that so that she can be me free? Shannon, let's start with you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. If I could, I'll just share one of those moments for me. It was sixth grade camp. I remember going to camp and my teacher told us it was going to be the best weekend. And it was not. It was the worst weekend because I was not in a cabin with my best friend. I was with these girls from another school. That was the idea, that we would meet kids from the other school. And these were the girls. They were popular. They were pretty. They were, they had all the cute clothes. They were talking about the cute boys. And I just found myself like retreating back into my little corner of the camp cabin. And they were all talking about how it was better to take your shower at night. Oh yes, they all agreed. It was better to take your shower at night. And I'm over here thinking like, I wasn't planning to take a shower at all. This is camp, I didn't bring shampoo. I didn't bring a towel. And so they all go off to their showers. They come back. And this one sweet little girl named Kim, she's got this thick, beautiful hair. She's rolling it up in these pink sponge rollers. I'd never seen these. And so I watched in the morning, she pulls them out, and Melanie, it was a thing of beauty. I couldn't believe it. It's like these big bouncy curls that bounce along on her shoulders. And I was just like, okay, this is enviable beauty of beauties, And so I just remember this weekend, though, feeling like I went to camp, this happy-go-lucky kid. I came home this sick to my stomach, like full of inadequacy. Like, I don't get it. I've got to reinvent my hair, reinvent my clothes, reinvent like all of these different things that I just felt so inadequate. And what I think is behind all of this is an enemy who's praying. Like I said, I don't think comparison is a game. I think it's a way to attack. And so, and I'm getting that idea from a verse in James that says, if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and think that this is the wisdom from above. It's not. It's the wisdom from below. It is earthly. It's unspiritual. It's demonic. They use the word demonic. James does in that verse. And so like bitter jealousy, that's looking over at your cup and noticing she's got more than me. She's prettier. She's got the right clothes. She's got the boyfriend, whatever it is, Selfish ambition, that's when I'm trying to prove that I'm the pretty one. I've got all the things. And both of these, they're both tied to this mindset that it's the wisdom from below. This is this earthly wisdom that we're all accustomed to, but we're called to a different wisdom, and there's a different voice to listen to. So if we want to find freedom, if we want our girls to find freedom, I think the main question is, who are you listening to? Like, where is this information coming from? Is it the wisdom from below, or is it the wisdom from above? And am I listening to the voice of my Jesus? Because I'll tell you this, if you're hearing some message that you are never going to be enough, you will never measure up. Look at you. You're falling behind. You're ugly. You're fat. You are not talented. You won't make the team. None of those things, none of them sound like our Jesus. He doesn't talk like that. And we have a recording of his words in our Bibles. And so like we need to train our girls. I think a great question for our girls to be asking and for us to be coaching them on is like, what voices are you hearing, and who talks like that? Because that is not the message of Jesus. Here's what Jesus sounds like. I'll just say one more thing. Jesus consistently says, the greatest is the servant. The one who will be exalted is the one who humbles herself, who's kind and generous and has a big heart to serve other people. That's the great one in the room. And so these are the messages that we want our girls to be focusing on and build their lives around.
And, something that just keeps coming to mind is what we do in moderation, our girls will do in excess. And so we are setting the example where if we do not deal with the business that we have, they will deal with it. And so my daughter Lexi used to just follow me around. I mean, just everywhere. And she is my mini me, which that just people telling her she's my mini me has set her up for some things. But when she was about 2 or 3 years old, I was getting into the shower, and all girls, right? Like, so I took off my clothes, took out my ponytail holder, and stepped on the scale and got into the shower. And I didn't realize that it was a pattern until I had told Lexi one day, it's time for you to get in the shower real quick. And I saw her strip down, take out her ponytail, step onto the scale, and get into the shower. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You're 3 years old. Why are you? And then it just dawned on me. She just did exactly what I do. And so, and there are now memes about this everywhere. But if I tell my mini me that I am fat and I am ugly, then she is hearing me speak words about myself that are now going to apply to her someday. And so I think it's really important for us to learn to deal with these wounds that we carry. You know, there was a time when I was in a choir, and I love to sing. I actually still love to sing, but I will never be the girl with the microphone singing. I'll speak at conferences any day, but please don't ask me to sing, because my dad said one day, your sister sings like an angel. Well, he didn't say I didn't sing like an angel. He just said my sister did. And so here we are 40 years later, not really, 35 years later. And I still don't want to pick up a microphone and sing, even though I love singing. And so I recognize there are certain things that we have those core wounds that we were talking about, these comparison wounds that need to be attended to, need to be dealt with. And so I would just encourage moms that are listening that where you hear those voices creep in, where they say you're not enough, it's time to deal with those, because if we don't deal with those, our girls will deal with those. And I would just argue that we are better equipped right now at this age to listen for the voice of Jesus, hear what he says is important, and accept those deeply into our lives so that our girls don't pick those up and run even further with them.
Yeah, very, very good. I want to take the time now to talk about your book. I review a lot of books, and I have really, really enjoyed this book. It's not written for my age group, and I don't have a teen girl anymore, but I just really, really am impressed by it. And I want to say, as a homeschooling mom to my listeners right now, that this is a book that you could give your teen daughter as part of life skills, as a health book. Because I feel like it is mental health, life skills, and it absolutely could be a Bible study. It is just very, very thorough, and it is written in a way that is so engaging for teen girls. But I want to hear from each of you what my listeners can expect from this book, what they can expect to find in it, and how you see that they could use it.
So inside the book, you should find quizzes of all kinds, which should engage your girls. We find that everybody loves to take quizzes, regardless of their age. They want to know, is this a problem for me, or more about this? And that was the goal, is just to make this really engaging. And there's even text conversations from Shannon and I that are true to life. Exchanges that we would have as friends. And that's our real hope, is that girls will dive into this together or with someone who loves them and start to settle these issues. There's scripture meditations and prayers, but what we tried to do is build a dynamic book. And we're so glad, Melanie, that you liked it, but build a dynamic book that they're going to find themselves in the pages. And you told the truth when you said we share our cringy stories in there, because our middle school and our high school girls, whether they're really 13 to 18 years old will find themselves in the pages here somewhere.
Mhm.
And we try to be really careful not to take them places they haven't already gone, which
Mhm.
could,
Mhm.
some books you worry about that in
Yeah.
teenage girls, but instead to give them godly principles in all these areas that they're facing in a way that is age appropriate for them. And both of us love the word of God and believe that is the foundation for a healthy mind. And so Shannon did a lot of work in the original book, Comparison Girl for Moms. And we would just really encourage them to grab both of those, go through the
Mhm.
journey together, settle this issue for your home, not just for your daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it'd be great if you got both of them. But in the teen book, we went even a little deeper into like how do these messages, like the woman's book is really truly a Bible study, but the teen, we're asking like, how does this play out as you compare yourself at school and in your
Mhm.
academics and in your sports? Like we did really divide it up by topics. So comparing families is, one of them,
Mhm.
or comparing appearances, or comparing your talents, comparing your wealth, like all of these different ways that we tend to compare, and giving really practical wisdom on how to find freedom.
Mhm. Yes, and you absolutely have done that, and I think that your your willingness to share such very personal examples that don't always make you appear, um,
Flatter.
at your best.
Right.
Um, I mean, it's
Yes.
Flattering. No, not flattering.
flattering. They're not
Don't
flattering.
always flatter. Yes.
Um, but I mean, I just love that because I think there's always this temptation of writing a how-to book where it's like, I have it together, I have it figured out. I was born knowing how to do this, and now I'm going to teach you. And you definitely haven't done that. It's really written with humility, and I think that is going to invite both mother and daughter to take the journey with you in this book. So I wholeheartedly recommend it. But I am wondering if you have other resources that would be useful for teen girls or their moms, and where they could find those resources.
So I have two other books, Brave Moms, Brave Kids, and Countercultural Parenting. And both of them really look at discipling the mom so she can disciple the kids. And that really is my heart, is that moms would do the work of in their own lives so that they can raise a countercultural generation. And Shannon has incredible books as well. But together on our site, Comparison Girl, you'll find quizzes and resources that will really help you walk through any of this. Shannon, tell them about yours.
Sure. Well, yeah, we want you to come to comparisongirl.com because you do have quizzes in the book, but it'll be fun for the girls to take the quizzes online. And we do say they can compare their scores with others. So that's kind of fun. This is my first resource for teens. I haven't written as much on parenting, so that's why I needed my co-author friend Lee in on this project. My other work has been for women, so I have another book called Control Girl: Lessons on Surrendering Your Burden of Control from 7 Women in the Bible, and I have a new Bible study coming out in July on the life of Sarah called Shaped by God's Promises. So I'm really excited about just my goal always is to invite women to open their Bible with me, drink in the true story of God's word, and then live like it's true.
Well, I love it. And I'm going to put links to both of your resources and, of course, to both of the Comparison Girl books so people can grab those and start using them in their homeschools. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. This has really been, I think, just not just encouraging, but empowering. So thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you,
Oh,
Melanie, for having us today.
it's been a privilege. Thank you.
To find the link to the book and places to connect with Shannon and Lee, visit the show notes at homeschoolsanity.com/comparisongirl. Have a happy homeschool week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I hope something you heard was encouraging. If you have a personal question to follow up, don't hesitate to message me. I'm at Homeschool Sanity on social media. Be sure to check my free resource page at homeschoolsanity.com/resource and find sanity-saving curriculum at funtolearnbooks.com. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.